Okay, today we have a problem with this unit. It blew the circuit breaker and I checked it out and the motor is seized up. It's on locked rotor amps. So the problem I'm having here is when a system is cold and off, like it's not running, it's hard to completely diagnose what caused the problem. All I know is that it's seized up. Now, here's a problem, and everybody runs into this, is the compressor is only a year old. They put it in January, March last year. And I have to figure out why this system didn't last. Why this compressor failed. Now it's refrigerant, it's medium temperature, and I'm using refrigerant 404A on the system. It's a walk-in cooler, beer cooler. So what I'm going to do is I have to troubleshoot here and cover bases. So because I just don't want to lose another compressor. Last year, the compressor before this one that was here, the wiring that came through with this unit, what brand is it? I'm not sure what brand it is, but the wiring that came through with this company sent was aluminum wires. The 3 wires going to the compressor were aluminum, 3-phase. And I'm sorry, this is single phase. And what I did was I had to replace the contactor on it, and then shortly after that the compressor failed. It was last March. So I assumed that single phasing incident was enough trauma to cause the compressor to fail. But here it is a year later and the compressor failed again. So I'm going to cover some bases here. That's all I can do, and hope it doesn't happen again. Now this is what I'm looking at. I'm going to put a suction accumulator in on the line over here. I'm waiting for the rain to stop. There's a rain front coming through, and it should be gone within the hour. And I'll have a window of opportunity where I'll be able to install this. But I'm going to put a suction accumulator in. I'm going to put a condenser fan control in. The reason I'm putting that in is both units failed in early spring after a cold winter. And even though it has and I believe that's an OA valve, I think that's what that is back there, or head pressure control in the back. I'm still going to put the fan control on it to shut the fan off, because sometimes in the wintertime when it gets cold, that valve just isn't enough. And this, having that control in there, won't let the refrigerant and the oil hang up in the condenser. It'll the head pressure will raise up, even in a cold day. It will raise up and push all the oil and refrigerant out of the condenser and into the system. Now, I'm also going to put, I've got it sitting, that little bag right there. It's a freeze stat. It's a little thermal click-on type sensor. And I'm going to install that on my suction line right over here. Just before the suction line goes into the compressor, I'm going to wire it in with the pressure controls circuit. That's the little pressure control sensor. I'm going to wire it in with that circuit. And what that'll do is if the evaporators are frosting up for whatever reason, and my suction line is frosting back to the compressor, when it's frosting, it means that we're not bringing 100% gas back to the compressor. Again, part gas and part liquid. The superheat is way too low at that point. And if that's happening, we're flooding, getting liquid back to the compressor. It's called slugging. And this sensor will sense that slugging and shut the system down until that liquid evaporates, so we eliminate those periods of slugging. The suction accumulator, what will happen with that is if there's liquid refrigerant coming in, it'll sit at the bottom of the tank. The liquid will sit at the bottom, and the suction line continues out. The gas on the top of the tank goes to the compressor, so this will help stop any gas being any liquid getting to the compressor. And of course I have a dryer filter to change, and I just have to wait now for the I did look at the evaporator coils, and there was a light coating of dust, but not enough to really cause it to ice up, so I'm going to have to look at that. And I believe I set the TDs on these at around 13. I may raise that up to 15 to help a little bit, but 13 should have been good. You can go down to 10 and it should be fine. But here's another thing. This is 404A, and this is kind of important. You should listen to this part. I was reading Emerson PFD on POE oil and 404A systems. I had a unit, the compressor went bad. Somebody else installed it, and the guy called me in to correct it. And what I found was when I was changing the dryer filter, quite a bit of oil came out of this liquid line, which is not a common thing to happen. And I read a PDF on POE oil, and what tends to happen sometimes is the oil, it floats. It doesn't connect with the refrigerant. The old petroleum-based oil, the refrigerant gas had chlorine in it, and the old petroleum-based oil would attach to the chlorine and come back to the compressor. This POE oil doesn't have the chlorine in it, and what POE oil does, it floats through the system. And that might be the problem here. Is according to the PDF from Emerson, it says sometimes the what do you call this? Not the accumulator, the receiver tank, liquid receiver tank. The liquid freon fills up the bottom of the tank, and there's a siphon tube goes down to the bottom, so liquid comes into the liquid line, and gas sits on the top of the tank. But what happens to the oil is according to the Emerson PDF, is sometimes that oil will float on top of the liquid refrigerant and get stuck there and not make its way back to the compressor. And the cure, according to Emerson, is to add some mineral-based oil to the POE system. And that mineral-based oil was supposed to help push the POE oil back. So I'll be adding mineral-based oil to the POE. I kind of expect in the future that the future POE oil is going to have mineral-based oil, some, a few percent in it, and just to help protect this. But this is a kind of a problem that every refrigeration, air conditioning guy will come across, where you're losing compressors on a job. And this is the second compressor here that's failed, and I'm putting a third one in here, and it's only been a couple of years. So like I said, I thought the first one failed because of the aluminum wires that burnt up, but this one here, it failed. It's let's see, it's right, today is April, yeah, I think it's April 27th today, something like that, 28th. And this compressor it was replaced in March 25 of 2015. So it's been just over a year. Okay, I have to start bringing more tools over here, torches and tanks and kneeling mats, and this ground's wet. You got to be careful of when you're working on wet grass. If you're kneeling down in it, it's you're very well grounded. You can get a good shock if you touch electricity on wet grass like this. Okay. Okay, I got the gas pump down now into the tank, the reclaim tank. So you can see the bottom of the compressor. See that frost on it? What's happening there is there's oil in the bottom with refrigerant in the oil, and that's like bubbling off. It probably looks like the tar pit in there, and it's I'm getting the residual gas out of that. And also you can see the receiver tank, the bottom of that is frosting pretty good. There's probably a little liquid in that boiling off. But okay, here's my weather report, and let's see, we are over here someplace. Where that yellow star is, right on Lake Erie. That's Ohio. That's Ohio, and there's we're right there. And this rainstorm is just about, supposedly looks like it's supposed to pass. And then it's south of us here, it's dry. So I'm waiting for this residual rain to finish going by so I can start cutting my lines open and installing this. I'm not going to open the lines up in this water. So, almost done. Okay, I've got the suction line accumulator installed. There's a little symbol here marked in. That's the line coming back. This is going back to the compressor this way. I've got to insulate the lines yet. I got the compressor installed. I'm installing the pressure control for the fan. And what else did I do? I have to change the dryer filter, but I'm not going to do it today. I just changed it a year ago. I'm going to come back in a couple days. I'm going to let this get used up on any carbonization or whatever. I did run nitrogen through the system, so that should be good. Now here's a little trick. I was in a supply house, so I don't know, a year ago. I was talking to an old timer. We're talking about finding refrigerant leaks. And what I did was I put nitrogen, I pressurized the system with nitrogen right now. And what his trick was to take the soap and mix it 50-50 with children's bubbles. And he said it really bubbled good. Now, I put pressure in the system and I started looking for leaks. Hey, Jay. And look at that. It's pretty good bubbles. See that bubble? Mm-hmm.
Is that where it's leaking from?
Line's insulated. I got the suction accumulator installed. Pulling a vacuum on it, and we're at, let's see if we can see this here. We're at 500 right now. I want to leave it on a little longer. Just I want to try to get any moisture out of the system as much as possible. I did run nitrogen through it. I'm going to change the dryer filter in 2 days. This dryer filter is only a year old, so I wanted to absorb any residuals, and then I want to put a fresh brand new clean one on, so it's 100%. Let's see, I put a freeze stat on it. You can see it right there. That's a freeze stat, and it's on the suction line going to the compressor. If the evaporator coil ices up, that freeze stat will shut the compressor down until the frost melts, till it warms up. And if it's iced up, we'll probably see the temperature. And here's the brand. It's a Subco freeze protection control, and that's the unit that I bought. These are pretty good. I use them on air conditioning units, and you get evaporator coils frost up, and it protects it. Let's see, that's the low pressure switch, and that was on there before. There's a high pressure switch also. I installed a fan cycle switch to keep the head pressure up in the very cold winter time. So I don't want to go through the winter without it on there. It's good to have it on there. Some people say that it's got an headmaster OROA valve, which floods the evaporator coil with the liquid backs it up, and they work pretty good, but I don't think it's quite enough, especially with a huge fan like that on the system. I've always found the combination works. What this fan switch will do is if the evaporator does get flooded with the liquid to maintain the head pressure, it'll only do so much. It won't get the head pressure up high enough, especially with the fan constantly running. So this will shut the fan off, and it'll actually raise the head pressure. You'll be putting hot gas into the top of the condenser, and it'll push the liquid out into the system. And they work pretty good. The only thing is the fan cycles will run for a while and then shut off, and then after a little bit it'll kick in again and run for a while and cycle. But generally it works pretty good. Let's see, I got the fan cycle switch, and what I did do was the unit does come with new start capacitor, run capacitor, and the relay. That's the old one, and I did put the new ones in it so that we don't have any possible problems. I did check the microfarads on the old ones, and they were fine. But there's a possibility that the relay, start relay, has a little problem in it, but most likely not. Cleaned the condenser off. We cleaned the evaporator coil off, and I'm going to start the system up in a little bit. I want to get this. We're down to deflection. See, gotta get rid of the reflection here. So we're down to 485, 484. I do want to get down to at least 300s. So it'd be another, 30 minutes. Okay, what I also want to do is, according to the Emerson PDF that I read a while ago about the oil hanging up, the POE oil floating on top of the liquid in the receiver tank, and the way to correct that is putting some mineral oil in there. And I did go through my truck, and under the shelf I did find good old Sunicel 3GS. Not much in there, but it's I'm going to put the whole thing in. I've got my thermal oil pump, and we're going to put that in there. And that's supposed to, according to Emerson, it's supposed to push the POE oil out of the it combines with the POE oil and carries it out of the receiver tank and into the system and back to the compressor. So that actually is what I think happened on this, is that the oil level dropped in the compressor and then the oil ended up in the receiver tank. And if that's the case, we have a little extra oil in the system. I don't think it'll really hurt anything, but we'll find out. It really is a shame they don't put sight glasses on these Copeland compressors. That would be such a big help. Some of the scrolls have sight glasses, and of course the old semi-hermetics had sight glasses, and it wouldn't be that much more of an expense, and I really wish they would put sight glasses and fill plugs, drain plugs, so that we can change the oil on the compressors. That would be so nice. Lots of times the oil on an old unit, the oil does get old. It starts out as a base and it turns into an acid. And in time, that acid will eat away the varnish on the motor winding, and the motor will short out. Maybe that's what Copeland wants, but the old semi-hermetics, it was nice. You're able to open up a plug and put a siphon in there and pull the old oil out and change the oil, put fresh oil in there. And you could keep an old semi-hermetic going for a long time. Okay. Running, it seems pretty good. A little chilly today. It's been in the 40s all day. It's raining most of the day. It's very miserable. 48 degrees now. Kind of warmed up. But most of the day was like 41 degrees and raining. Very miserable weather to work in when you're wet and cold, I had to break my gloves out to keep my hands half warm. But my run load amps is rated at 27, and I've got 20, 21. That's fine. We're under the rating. My evaporator, clear. My suction's at 60. The head pressure is low. It's at 211, but it's cold today. My evaporator's at 23. 20 to 24 is good. I'm not unhappy with that at all. Suction pressure is a little high, head pressure is a little bit low. So I'm going to come back in a couple days and go over the two evaporators in this walk-in cooler, and I'm going to check the delta T's on them, and I'm going to change the dryer filter. I'm going to button this up out here and go inside now.
This whole thing, I want to go on YouTube right here. This whole thing.
Go stand in front of your cooler. No. Come on. This is my customer, Jay. Say hi, YouTube.
What's up, YouTube?
This is our cooler that we've been working on all day. We'll go inside and take a look at it first. And there's Papa down there messing around with. Don't break it. You're on YouTube. Yeah, these are the evaporator coils doing these two expansion valves on them. Okay, guys, that was a long one today.